Looks like half our class is at the other class.
Mm-hmm.
90 listings in 90 days. You guys just get to give me one listing. Did you edit last week's? Or just put it out there?
I just put it out
Oh
there.
my God.
I think it's only got like 2 views though, so.
So we'll see if I gotta clean it my act. All right. We're gonna talk about listings. Start the listing paperwork today. And this isn't necessarily from how you do a listing presentation. This is, you've got the listing presentation, now you're sitting down and you're doing the paperwork. But, I mean, we'll give you a couple of things. When you're going on a listing presentation, and we talked about this last week, do you want to be the client tells you they're going to have multiple people coming in, do you want to be the first one or the last one? What do we decide?
First.
Because if you're the last, you might never get in, right? So you want to be the first one in. Hopefully, you're going to be the first and the last. If you know what you're doing. Because, I mean, when it comes down to it, what is the seller looking for? There's really 3 main things.
Competent individual, somebody that knows what they're doing, somebody's going to get their house sold.
Okay, but let's just say everybody is competent and everybody is the same. They're looking for 3 things that are going to really help them make their decision. Price, right? What it's going to cost me, the cost, and what are you going to do to sell my house?
When you say price, what do you mean?
Selling price. How much you're selling the house for. Right?
That's going to be based on their appraisal. I mean, you're going to put an amount on it, but
Well,
you're also
you
going
need to
run
tell
comps.
them, you're going into that listing, you've got to give them a price of what you feel the house is worth.
Exactly.
Well, then
Okay.
have your CMA and stuff to support.
Right.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, if there's 10 agents going in to list that house or, do some presentations, shouldn't the number be the same?
Should be, but it won't.
Why?
Not everybody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, we said competent. So, bottom line is the numbers should be the same. Okay, and the reason I bring it up is that's one of the reasons one of the ways you're going to, if you go in first, if you explain it properly to them, and you give them the price that they agree to, and you go through the cost, and they agree to what the costs are, they're realistic, and basically you should all be the same unless someone's cutting a commission. And then the third thing is, what are you going to do for me? So at the end of the presentation, if I say, Dave, you told me you had some other people, but that you were thinking about talking to, you agreed to, you can agree that the comps we looked at, you thought were right, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the costs, you're fine with that. We've already gone through those. And you like what I'm going to do for marketing your home. Is there really any reason why you wouldn't list today?
Maybe another agent's going to come in and offer to do it for 2%.
Okay. So what's my answer to that?
I would say that you're going to get 2/3 of the work that I'm going to put in.
And that's a good line to do. Here's one of my lines that I think you picked up in the last few years. I actually used it on something the other day. If somebody's willing to give away their money, how are they going to do when it's your money? You think they're going to be very quick to give away your money too? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so the commission,
Hi, this is Dave.
if you come to an agreement on the cost of everything, you say that you wanted to have somebody else come in there, but you can agree that we're on the same page, and you can have 10 other realtors come into your house and look at it, and the value of the house is going to be the value of the house. We're all using the same comparables. So, are you ready? Would you sign the papers today? Well, here's one. I had this agent coming out, and I really don't want to hurt her feelings. I want her to come and do her presentation. Well, Whitney, I can appreciate that, but I know you don't want to hurt her feelings. Would it be okay if I called her and told her that we've already listed the property? Could you ever see yourself doing that one?
Why not?
You hope that they don't answer the phone. You hope you get the voicemail. However, know that you may have to actually make that call.
You gotta send them an email.
And you're right. You're right. So a lot of times people don't know how to say no. Okay? And if you take that off the plate, you can walk out with your goal is you want to get that listing on that first appointment. Because if you don't, they go into work tomorrow and Dave says, hey, great news. You know, I'm thinking about selling my house. Well, you should talk to my realtor, right? So the longer time goes, the harder it is to close the deal. So you want to go in with the attitude that you can close the deal right away. And that's what I'm saying. Okay, little tidbits there. What are you trying to do when you go into the house?
Trying to get them to sign with us.
Okay, and how do you do that? What's that?
Prove your value.
Okay. Another word.
Sell yourself.
Okay. All of those are right.
But
Not the answer I'm looking for. Okay, you guys get to talk too. You can talk while you're peeling your orange.
when you go into that house, you want to leave with that listing.
Right. And how do you do that? How about rapport? Okay, people don't want to work with somebody they don't feel comfortable with, right?
Right.
You need to build rapport with them. Doesn't mean you have to be their best friend. It means you're going to have rapport in a business relationship. If you don't have rapport, you're not getting a listing. Okay, that's plain and simple. There is a saying, I want you, some of you might have heard this. I want you to finish my saying. If I, you can't read my mind? Maybe you should just keep being on your own. If I get every listing I go on, finish that statement.
You're doing something wrong.
Almost. If I get every listing I go on,
The seller's in control. Or the seller.
there's a package right back there for you. If I get every listing I go on, I'm not going on enough listings.
Oh, is that what it is?
Why do I say that?
You shouldn't have rapport with everybody.
That's right. You're not going to bond with everybody, right? That means in most cases you're staying in your comfort zone. And you need to go outside of your comfort zone so you get more listings. So if I go on every listing, if I get every listing I go on, I'm not going on enough listings. Bottom line. So you've got to build rapport with people. If they feel comfortable with you, they're going to work with you. When I go into a listing, the first thing I do is I take my notebook and I take copious notes, and it can be about dumb things. But I ask them to show me around the house and point out everything about the house, good and bad. And sometimes people say, well, why do you want to know the bad things? And my answer is, and even if they don't ask it, I always say, I want to know the bad things, because if you think it's bad, the new buyers, potential buyers are going to think it's an issue. I would rather know about it right up front so I can deal with it. So that's one question I ask them.
Oh, excuse me.
And that's not one question. So when they go through and they point everything out to me, and I'm taking my pages of notes, I sit down at the table and we'll start chit-chatting. Then I ask them, I always ask Dave 2 questions on every listing appointment I go on. And the first question want to know is, what is important to you in a real estate agent? I want them to answer that question. Why?
So you can,
So you can be it.
yeah, you can frame how you,
That's exactly right, and people think that's goofy. I can give you 90, if I don't ask that question, and I tell you 99 things I'm gonna do for you, but the 100th thing I never bring up, and that's important to you, guess what? I'm missing the boat, aren't I? So I just ask them the question. And it's funny, Cindy and I were talking about, because we've gone on a lot of listing appointments in the last week and a half. We were talking about that because there's been a couple where I'm going to maybe add a third question or maybe a statement to it. I'm going to tell them what's important to me, because I want them to know how I'm going to, what we're going to do, what's important, how we communicate and things like that. And some people will go, I don't know what you mean, what's important? And it's as simple as communication, because there's so many ways to communicate now, right? Dave likes his texting and everything else, where if you got old people,
phone call.
it's a phone call. Okay, so I ask them up front, how do you want to be communicated with? Because if I'm sending emails and they're not reading their emails, that's probably not a good way to communicate with somebody, is it? What do you think the second question I'm going to ask them is?
Got a second mortgage? I don't know.
Yeah, okay, that's good. But not quite the second one.
How quickly do you want your house to sell?
That's actually not a bad one, and I think that's going to come up in discussion. I'm going to put it right on the table. Dave, what do you think your house is worth? And what do you think most people are going to say?
It's worth the limit. Everybody loves their
25% higher
house.
than it probably
No,
is.
they're going to say that's why you're here, right?
Everybody thinks they have a wonderful house.
Right. But most people are going to say, well, that's why I got you here. And I'll say, you know what? I'll just kind of chuckle and say, you're right.
Glad you said that.
I'm glad you said that, and that is why I'm here. But I like to know what you feel it's worth, so we can see if we're on the same page. Because I need to know if you're going to be realistic about this. Because if they say 300 and you've got your comps at 200, you might have a problem, right?
They're never realistic.
Well, it's funny. I find that most of my appointments are, okay? Because again, most of my appointments are either referrals or past clients. Much better way to do business, okay? Because they're going to trust you. Now, if I think the house is worth 300 or 200 and they think it's worth 300, and I pull out my comps and I start showing it to them, then at the end of the conversation I can say, do you agree with these comparables? And most people, and again, it's how you carry yourself. If you're wishy-washy, they're going to push you all over the place. They're going to say, oh, this is no good. When someone brings up price or comparables, what do you think one of the first things they're going to say? My neighbor got X for his house. And I always tell people, and we just had this one last week. Well, your neighbor, I found out over the years that sometimes neighbors tend to exaggerate the price of their home because they want to make it look like they got top dollar for their home. But here, as you can see, I have that comparable right here for you.
Right.
This is their house, right? This is the price of their house. So you can see that what they told you didn't quite work that way. So once they tell me what their house is, I'm still not giving them the value of the house at that point, okay? I'm going to go through my CMA or whatever I'm using, and I'm going to I'm going to tell them what I'm going to do for them. I'm going to show them the comparables at that point and say, okay, these you can agree on the comparables, right? These make sense? Okay, well, based on that, this is what I feel your home is worth. Most people, if they're serious, if it's a $200,000 house, with the information today, most people are relatively close. 10 to 15, 20 grand. You're not going to find somebody who thinks their house is worth $250,000 on a $200,000 house.
Zillow's actually low right now compared to what realistic.
Zillow is the nightmare.
Wow, customers love it though.
Zillow is a nightmare, and I always set the table, especially with buyers. If you have Zillow on your phone, get rid of it. Because it's the worst thing you can look at. Because you guys realize our multi-list has active pendings and solds, right?
Right.
Does Zillow? What does Zillow have?
Make me moves, possible
Okay.
foreclosures.
Some of them are even sold, and you're still looking.
They have actives and solds. They don't have pendings. Okay? So if your client is pulling up listings, I want to go look at this house on Main Street. It says it's active.
It could be sold.
It's pending in a lot of cases.
Oh,
So they don't get that. So the most important thing they could be using is the MLS, making sure you're sending them in Realcom. All right, so we all agree on a price of the house. We're sitting down and we're doing our paperwork now. What's the first form you're going to have signed?
exclusive right to sell?
Nope, that is the absolute last
Last.
form. I am a firm believer in you train your clients to sign their name. And you always start with the easiest first.
Oh, okay.
So what's the first one you're going to sign?
Disclosure
By law.
regarding Real estate agency.
Agency disclosure, correct?
Yeah.
So pull out the agency disclosure. Oh, we don't have that in here.
I do.
Oh, yeah, we do have it in here. We're not going over the agency disclosure, why?
The agency last week.
We went through agency last week, you are correct.
Let me ask a question. I wasn't here last week, and I represent buyers anyway. But this is just a quick question.
Okay,
Okay. You get your, I'm gonna say buyers, because I've been working with buyers. You get your buyers to sign this, okay, you get a deal going. You don't have to send all 3 pages, do you? To the other side, to the.
I would, on the agency disclosure, I would probably send all 3.
You would?
Yeah, some of them want it for their records, some of them don't, but I would send it all. You don't have to send your buyer's agency contract,
Right, right.
but your agency disclosure I would send. So we're not gonna go through agency, because we went through it last week. In the upper right-hand corner, I would probably put number 1 on this. I believe if you go through them this way, you're gonna find out that it makes sense doing this. All right? Just for, we can take a quick time out here. I want you guys to go around the room and introduce yourself, because we got a few new faces today.
Am I going to Henderson?
And a little bit about yourself, too.
I've been with Keller Williams 2006. I started out in Farmington with Anita Crawford, and when they closed, I moved over here. And right now, I started working with listing sellers and buyers. When the market fell through, I started working just with buyers. Now it's starting to shift, so I'm trying to learn to list all over again.
Okay?
And I had one of my buyers ask me to list their house because they want to buy somewhere else.
Okay?
I'm Stephanie Olszewski. I got my license in June last year, and then I left for a little while.
Now she's back.
And now I'm back. I'm with Roxanne Fitzpatrick. I guess that's it.
My name is Andre Lately. I have been doing this for about a month now, and that's it.
Okay.
My name is Jay Randolph. Been licensed since '03. Stepped away from the business for a little while in '06 when the market took a turn. I worked with Keller Williams, Livonia, went to Detroit, and I worked with Bryce Winthrop. After that is when I actually stepped away. And now I'm coming back because it is that time.
So you've been out for, since '06, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
about 06. So I'm just, it's all of this is like a refresher course for me. I mean, I remember most of it. Some of the little intricate details is what I need to polish up. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I love it.
All right.
David Farland, standalone agent. I got licensed in mid-December and started. I've only been with Keller Williams and just trying to get my business up and running and hopefully see quite a bit of growth in 2015.
Whitney?
I'm Whitney. I'm not an agent. I just started a couple weeks ago. I'm doing administrative stuff.
And you were with Troy and?
I was with Troy from early 2012 to early 2014, I think.
And you were in Ann Arbor too?
No, no.
Okay, I'm Pete. I've been here I came with before the building.
I was gonna say forever.
Well, with Keller Williams, it is forever. Keller Williams, 1999, when we opened Keller Williams in Michigan. I was one of the first agents. Nobody has more seniority in Michigan than me. I'll have you know, Carolyn and myself.
Nice.
Well, she actually has a couple weeks on me, Carolyn. But, so I've been around the block once or twice. I've been teaching this since pretty much when we opened. And I believe it's very important that you guys understand the forms and how you can use the forms to your advantage, not just how to fill in a blank. So there's a reason I do things the way I do. In most cases, it makes sense. It may not make sense to you. Ask me. But the idea is hopefully I can keep you out of trouble, because trouble is no good for you guys. And it's certainly no good with me, because then I have to take time doing things like talking to attorneys. So, all right. So that's it. Thank you guys for doing that. So we got agency first. What are we going to do next? All right, what's the next form? How about halfway through is your designated agency form? You guys find that one? This one here? Designated agent, addendum to listing contract. That's going to be number 2. Obviously, put the address up top. This addendum is to be part of and incorporated into a listing contract between Keller Williams Realty North Market Center as listing broker and blank as seller. So your seller's names go in there. If you have 2 sellers, both names need to go in. Dated, whatever today's date is, regarding the above captioned property. Keller Williams Northville Market Center and seller hereby designate, what goes there?
My name.
That's good. Your name. As a seller's designated agent. For purposes of this addendum, sellers shall have an agency relationship with only Keller Williams Realty Northville Market Center, the designated agent named above, and Peter Costa as supervisory broker. If a potential buyer is represented by a designated agent with Keller Williams Realty Northville Market Center, other than the named agent above, Keller Williams Northville Market Center and all supervisory brokers shall automatically be deemed disclosed consensual dual agents. We've talked about this a little bit. Why did we go to designated agency?
To avoid sub-agency.
No.
Dual agency.
To eliminate as many dual agency situations as possible. By going to designated agency, how do you guys get into dual agency?
Represent both sides.
You represent both sides, correct? If we were in a designated agency office, just a normal real estate office, what would we be? Or how could you get into a dual agency scenario?
By working with each other in here.
In-house?
If it was an in-house deal, you guys would be in a dual agency situation. So by going to designated, you guys aren't in dual agency in that scenario. But who is?
You are.
The broker and myself. And when I
You
say
are the broker, aren't you? That's what I thought.
you are correct to an extent.
Okay.
Am I the broker?
No, Keller Williams is.
Keller Williams is the
Oh,
broker.
well, you're the broker on
I am
site.
the supervisory broker, associate broker, whatever. Remember, the entity is always the broker. All right? So their relationship, and this is what you need to tell them, is, Stephanie, if you're working with a client, you just say, your agency relationship, no, I shouldn't use you because you're with Roxanne. Forget that. I would go over here.
You can't use me.
Dave, if you're working with a client, you just need to tell them that your agency relationship is with me, and if you can't get a hold of me, who should they call?
You.
Me. That is correct.
So if I fall sick, it falls into your hands, right?
You better be deathly ill at that
Tell me,
point.
do you assign that to someone else? Or
If
you
it's
answer-
somebody, if it's a quick question and they need to call me, that's fine. But am I doing your business? Not a chance.
No, but if I'm in the hospital, let's say,
I would say we're gonna have to figure out option B is because it would be very difficult for me to, oversee someone's business.
Go with someone we trust and get that referral fee.
Right. That's the best way to handle it.
oh, so I should just refer it to someone.
I would say that. I mean, if you're gonna be laid up for a while, you're gonna be out of town, that's the best way, is have somebody you can fall back on. All right. Dual agency, when used in the attached listing contract, shall not include the situation where a potential buyer of a seller's property is represented by a designated agent within Keller Williams Realty Northville Market Center that does not have an agency relationship with that seller. So the middle paragraph tells you who's in dual agency. The bottom paragraph tells you who's not in dual agency, right? All right, so they sign, you sign, and we move on. So that's number 2. So I would just turn these babies over, so number 1 is on top and number 2 is right behind it. Let's do another easy one, because remember, we're teaching them how to sign their name. How about the affiliated business arrangement disclosure? Has anyone ever looked at this? Now, real quick, are you guys going to go through line by line on all these papers?
No?
Correct. So that's why you start with the easiest paper first, so that you're building trust with them in your rapport session. The affiliated business arrangement, this is how I explain it. Stephanie, we have a relationship with a title company and a mortgage company. Now, we're dealing with sellers here, right? It's a listing presentation. We use First Centennial Title to handle all our title work in the office. You're free to use whoever you want, but we use them because they're the best title company that we can deal with. They are in our office, so if there's an issue, all I have to do is walk my 10 feet across my office hallway and talk to them. And it's a relationship we've had that's worked out very well for us. I have to let you know that we do get compensated for using First Centennial, and I have to disclose that. That's all I say. And I might add on, the reason we do get compensated, but that's not the reason we use them. We could go anywhere, but we choose to stay with First Centennial. So most people are going to check the box First Centennial. Now, if somebody says, well, my brother works for Title I, and he said he'd give me a discount, then you know what? Fine. 99 times out of 100 on listings, sellers don't care. They just want the deal to go smoothly. All right, starting at the top, numerous market surveys have indicated that the buyer and seller of real estate welcome the opportunity to conduct all the transaction necessary for a successful closing in one place, under one roof. We at the Keller Williams Northville Market Center are proud to have a close business affiliation with several outstanding providers of essential real estate services. The providers are First Centennial Title for title insurance and Movement Mortgage for financing all or part of your purchase sale requirements. Representatives of these firms are available in our office. You are not required to use these providers. There are frequently other settlement service providers available with similar services. You are free to shop around to determine that you are receiving the best service and best rate for the service. Because of this relationship, their use may provide Keller Williams with a financial or other benefit. Everything I just said, right? Please check one of the following. Sellers use First Centennial for owner title services. Purchasers choose First Centennial Title for mortgage title services. Benefits include reduced closing fee, more input control with the closing, or we choose blank for title services. Now, something was just emailed to me a couple of days ago. I think this form is going to change. I just haven't looked at it close enough because of RESPA. It looks like the form needs to be changed, but it's going to basically say the exact same thing. Due to the periodic changes in rates and fees, the estimated or charge a range of charges by First Centennial Title Agency for title insurance services provided to you are available upon request. If you need to know, if somebody asks, we can get that from Jenny or Chris upstairs. Okay, then movement mortgage is the next part. You know, we're not gonna talk about that, but just realize something. If you're dealing with a buyer and they say, well, I already got a loan rep picked out, I'd say, you know, listen, you at least should talk to Movement Mortgage to see if you're getting a good deal. Because at the end of the day, this is, you know, it's an important situation, it's an important piece to the puzzle. And if you can save money on it and make sure the transaction goes just as smooth, it doesn't hurt to talk to them. So, we have read this disclosure form and understand that Keller Williams Northville Market Center is referring us to utilize the above described settlement services and may receive a financial or other benefit as a result of this referral. They sign it. Number 3 on the hit list. Homeowners Association. Why do we fill out a homeowners association?
It has to be on the list, if there is one.
Not the homeowners.
Homeowners Association. Is that for the bylaw?
No.
If there's an HOA, it doesn't have to be disclosed on Lexington.
Yeah, but that's not why this is filling out. And who gets this form? If I tell you who gets this form, it's gonna make it a little easier. But I'll make
Homeowners
it-
Association is.
No, that's where you need the information from the homeowner association to fill this out.
Title is,
Why?
because they need to know who to contact when they're
Why?
doing their search,
What search?
property search.
You need to, the title company needs to know if there's a homeowners association, and they also need to know if the dues have been paid.
Right.
Why?
So they can have the right proration.
Right,
To make sure there's no liens on the property,
there you go.
okay? No liens on the property. Homeowners associations can be a lien if it's a mandatory homeowners association. If it's something that says, yeah, we charge 25 or 50 bucks a year to put flowers in the front of, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the newer subdivisions, whether they're condos or not, have some hefty homeowner association. I mean, if it's $200 or $300 a year, then, and it's a lienable offense, if they don't pay it, it needs to be paid at closing.
Right.
Okay? So that's the next thing you need to fill out. It's pretty simple. And now, if you guys are coming to the meetings and listening to Charlie and Tony, getting payoffs, especially on condos right now, are costing $1,000 in some cases to get the information. These management fees, or management companies, are just bending everybody over. That they're ridiculous, and it might take them weeks to get it. So you need this filled out at the beginning, and you need to get this one to the title company. All right, number 4, right? Let's see what number 5 is like.
Let's sign your contract.
Nope. You go first. You go to sign the contract early in the game. If it's the first thing you do, they are going to read every line of that contract. All right? How about benefits of including a home warranty when you list your home? This is a new form that must be signed. Okay, we want you to take the time to explain what a home warranty is. Can't find yours?
I don't have one.
Something got screwed up at the end. I don't think you missed one. Does everybody else have one?
Yes.
It's just-
I have it.
It's right there. What are the benefits of a home warranty?
Peace of mind for the buyer.
Okay. Peace of mind for the seller too. A lot of times it'll avoid the problems after close, right? Because if somebody has a problem, buyer moves in the house and all of a sudden they got a problem, who they calling first?
So,
Nope.
Hey, you.
the
Which agent?
The buying agent.
The buyer's agent. And who's the buyer's agent gonna call?
Listen.
Listing agent. Who's the listing agent gonna call?
So,
Seller, right?
Yeah, but if it was a problem before, the warranty is not gonna cover it.
Well, depends. but most people are gonna go through it. And that's why you just sit there and say, in most cases, hey Dave, why don't you just call the home warranty company and see if you can get that taken care of? 9 times out of 10, that problem goes away. Why else is it a benefit for a seller to have a home warranty on there?
Something happened, well, I guess that's insurance. I was gonna say when it's listed, if something happens during an inspection.
Well, it's not even so much then, but while it's listed, okay, if there's an issue, it may be covered for the seller during the time of the listing. Now, they don't have the exact same coverage as a buyer does, but there are certain things that are covered. When does the seller pay for it?
At closing?
Correct. Even if they use it prior to closing, they still don't pay for it. And if it never closes, guess what?
They don't pay for
They
it?
still don't pay for it. So from a listing point of view, it's worth it to put it on there, because especially if it's a lower end home, first time home buyer, most first time home buyers are going to ask for a home warranty. So you might as well just put it on up front and just deal with it. It's an easy sell if you know what you're doing. I've really concentrated on it my last 5 or 6 appointments because I've gotten lax, and I'm having no problem putting them on there. All right. So that's going to be what number? Is that 5, 4, 5? That's
Yeah.
number 5.
If your seller won't pay for it, will you have to pay for it?
I mean, if somebody, sometimes I would probably put one on from a buyer point of view if I was working with a buyer than a seller and pay for it. Have I bought home warranties before? Sure. If I thought it was a good client and it was, beneficial to them, I'll do it.
Do you have to let them know you're getting kickback from them?
If you're paying for it, no. In our purchase agreement, it does talk about we may get it in a home warranty in that form. If you want to explain it when it's the seller, I've never done it that way. Okay, I just tell people that it's to their benefit to do it. And bottom line, if you put it on at the beginning, is it really costing sellers money? And by that I mean, let's say you were going to take $95,000. Somebody out makes you an offer and you counter them, and I'm willing to take 95. It's going to be around $400. Say 95.5. I'm saying just up the price a little bit. Everyone's going to be happy. The buyer's getting their home warranty, and your seller's getting what they wanted anyways. So it's just a question of how you strategically handle things. All right, next. How about the lead-based paint disclosure? Is this a state form or federal form?
Federal.
It is. What does the law say about lead-based paint?
Any house before 1978
Has what?
has lead in the paint.
Has?
Has what?
Has?
Has the possibility.
Has the possibility.
Okay.
Has the possibility. Doesn't mean that it does, it just has the possibility. So, lead-based paint is a potential problem. Okay, no doubt about it. Probably one of the few things I believe in that's an actual potential problem. So you have to disclose that. Do you think most sellers know if their home has lead-based paint?
No?
No.
I've never seen a seller in 23 years say that they know their house has lead-based paint.
Is there a way to know?
You have a lead-based paint test done,
Oh, okay.
and that's the only way. And now it's funny, I've heard a couple different things. Having a lead-based paint test, Dave, you were saying you go to Home Depot and get a test. I've never seen that, done that, or whatever. I know that if you get a regular lead-based paint test done, it could be up to, $600, $700.
Really?
Yeah. It becomes an issue, lead-based paint, when?
Kids?
Kids? What? If you have kids, you ain't lead-based paint?
Kids do.
Just automatically?
Chippings on the floor, they put
Eat.
everything in their
Eat,
mouth.
right. If they
Yeah.
chew on lead-based
Yeah.
paint, yes. What's the other way to get problems?
Wayne County prosecutors.
Sanding.
Sanding it.
Oh,
What happens if the county contacts you and tells you you have lead-based paint? You have to disclose that, right?
You have experience?
Yeah, because a kid gets lead-based paint poisoning, then they'll contact you and tell you you have to redo your house.
but tell me this is my
Hold on,
problem.
hold that thought.
Okay,
One moment.
okay.
One moment, please. I've never had that scenario. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, but they'd have to be in the house. Just because a kid has lead-based paint and says, I got it in this house, I don't think they can make that claim, okay? Because they could have got it from their neighbor's
Grandma's
house or
house.
somebody else's house, right? But if they come in and do a lead-based paint test, yeah, you definitely would have to disclose it.
So if they didn't do a test, then you don't have to disclose.
I don't think you would have to. I mean, I don't know how you could.
You don't know.
You don't know. Just because I said your house has lead-based paint, does that mean your house has lead-based paint?
Nope.
I mean, I don't know. Do we know that probably 95% of the homes in Detroit have lead-based paint?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's like in downtown Northville. It's the same scenario. Those houses are older than the ones in Detroit. Okay, so it's an assumption. Okay, assumptions don't work. Now, what was your question?
A house that was built, okay, they're saying that any house built before 1978 has a possibility of lead-based paint. We're in 2015. The house has been painted 100 times.
You would hope.
Yeah, we would hope. So doesn't that take away that possibility?
No, it's still there. Remember, lead-based paint is still there. And the two ways you get it, like you guys said, one is to chew the paint chips, and the other is if you start sanding down. Now, if you lightly sanded this wall and there were 5 coats under it, you're probably not going to get to the lead-based paint. But if you strip it down totally to the plaster, you've stirred up some lead-based paint dust probably. And the other thing is on like moldings and stuff like that. Around windows is probably the greatest chance to get it because of the moisture, and that's where paint peels. Now, another place where nobody ever thinks about, and I don't get it, is exterior. Go by a garage
Oh.
in Detroit or Royal Oak or Ferndale or whatever, and you see it, and it's just flaking off in chips like that. Nobody ever brings that up. I never understood why. Because I'm sure that's just as dangerous, if not more, than, you know, inside the house.
I was a certified abater for lead-based paint and asbestos in my previous job. Nobody wants to pay to have that done.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely do not want to. We did a couple of historical homes in Northville, and I mean, not only is it a gigantic process, but with the visqueen you have to put down, all your landscaping's dead. So if someone's worried about it and they actually want to disclose it, it's pretty easy to talk them out of it because of the process.
Now, again, and that's the important thing, you can't talk somebody out of it, but from a buy point of view, and we talked a little bit about this, and since these guys may not have been in it, what if you're dealing with a buyer and they say, you know what, I'm really concerned about lead-based paint, and I really don't want to buy a house that has it, but let's go look in downtown Northville.
Okay.
And so, part of writing an offer, right, as the buyers, you're going to get this form. And on it, we're going to come to it, it's going to say, seller has no knowledge of lead-based
They
paint.
all say it.
Correct. So the buyer says, well, I'm a little leery. My friends told me to lead-based paint test done. So, you bring me an offer, I'm the listing agent. And Dave's my client, my seller. And in it, it says you want to have a lead-based paint test done. What do I advise Dave?
Put it in the shredder.
First of all, it doesn't have to state it in the purchase agreement. They're gonna do a private inspection. That's when they do the lead-based paint.
They're going to ask for it. On here, it clearly states, received an 10-day opportunity or mutually agreed upon period to conduct a risk assessment or inspection of the residence of lead-based paint. Or they waive the opportunity.
All my buyers sign the first one. They don't do it, but they can.
They receive the opportunity?
Yeah.
I
They
would
can do it. if they
never,
want to.
ever, if you brought me that offer, this is exactly my point.
I've never had a problem.
Dave could sit here and say, you know what? I don't want to take your offer. Okay? Even though we know that house in Northville probably has lead-based paint, right? But this is my don't ask, don't tell. like the military. Everybody knows, most people are gonna say, you know what, okay, fine. It probably is lead-based paint, I don't care. Once you do, let's say you do that lead-based paint test, because you've agreed to it, you've said, I want it, and Dave lets you do it, or we accept your offer, I don't say lets you do it, he accepts your offer, and you find out there's lead-based paint, and you walk away from the deal, right?
You can still do it because of the private inspection.
You're missing the point.
But then
You're saying that the seller's not gonna take it because I'm saying I wanna do it.
Correct, because what does Dave have to do? He now has to disclose there's lead-based paint there. Do you think a lot of people that now that they're looking at this and see that it has lead-based paint may not even look at the house? Okay, so you bring that.
Screwed himself.
That's exactly right. I can't tell Dave, don't take this offer, but I can tell Dave, Dave, this is what might happen. What do you want to do? So if you're having him check the first one, I would not be doing that if I were you. I would ask him and just say, do you plan on having a lead-based paint test done? And if they say no, great. Have them check it.
And
you don't
they
have to
say,
worry
I don't
about it.
know. I say, well, check the first one, just in
No,
case you
see?
want to down the road.
All right,
I think I have a
now,
problem.
you may not have a problem, but again, you putting yourself out there, because let's say they say, I want to have the lead-based paint test done, and I'm still going to buy the house, right?
They have to disclose when they sell.
When they go to sell it, guess what they have to do?
They're going to have to dispose it. But
But what?
if that's what your buyer wants,
I
you
am
don't
not-
talk them out of it.
Is all your job is to explain on everything you do in real estate. If you do this, this is what happens. If you do this, this is what happens. What you're doing by just saying check this, you're not putting them in the best situation. Because A, they may not get the house, right? They may not get the house because the seller might say, no way, I'm not having that on my, I don't want to have to disclose that. Or B, when they go to sell it, what have you done? You've created a potential obstacle that they may have said, why didn't you tell me that when I did the inspection?
But you're representing the seller, I'm representing the buyer. I'm doing
You're
what's
missing the
right.
point.
No, I'm not.
Okay. You're absolutely missing, do you guys agree that she's missing the point?
How? I'm representing a buyer.
Because you're putting the buyer in a place where A, he may not get the deal.
He might not want the deal if it has lead-based paint.
Okay.
That's the reason
And-
for checking the box.
You need to explain the ramifications of what is going on. This is what happens. If you check the box, there's two bad things that can happen about that. One is you may not get the house, okay? And two, if you do get the house, when you go to sell, you now have to disclose. And in 23 years, I have never seen anybody disclose lead-based paint.
They don't. But let me say this. If I'm representing a buyer, wait a minute, I know you said I'm missing the point.
You are.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm representing the buyer.
Right.
And my buyer said, I'm not gonna buy a house with lead-based paint. I wanna know if this house.
Then I would say.
So, wait a minute. So, it shows that it has lead-based paint. They walk away from it. They're not that, I mean, they like the house, but they're not gonna buy this if it has lead-based paint or lead-based paint.
If somebody says, I don't want to buy a house with lead-based paint, what's your answer to that?
You need to buy a
All
house.
houses.
that's-
You need to buy a house.
that-
You need to build a house.
No,
You need
go
to
ahead.
build one.
you need
Answer
to
the
bu-
question.
You need to buy a house that was built
After 1978. If you don't want to buy a house, yes, that's what you're missing here. Is-
No, that's
Okay.
like telling a person to buy a house that has mold in it. No, we want to do a mold test because I don't want to mold.
Did we just say to buy a house?
That is totally different.
I'm representing the buyer.
You represent
You
the
said-
buyer. If they say that they don't want a house with lead-based paint,
Right.
then you have to tell them that they need to buy houses after 1970,
Right.
built
Oh, I get
after
that part.
1978,
I get that
because
part.
every house built before 1978
There's a possibility.
is a possibility.
Great.
I get
So
that
if you
part.
don't want to buy,
And this is what else he's trying to say. He said if you came with if you or any other agent had a competent agent had a listing, and you came with your buyer, and your buyer said, hey, I want to do a lead-based paint test, what that listing agent is going to advise their seller to do is to reject your offer, or actually tell them what's going on and the possibilities of what happened. And 9 times out of 10 they're gonna, it's like pointing them in a direction like this is what's gonna happen and this is what's what, and so the seller is going to reject the offer no matter what. You will be doing almost, I would say,
A disservice.
you will be doing your client, your buyer a disservice
That is
by
exactly
trying
right.
to get them to buy a house or to want to do a lead-based paint test. They're not going to go for that. No
Right.
seller, because it, like he said, it puts liability on them.
Right.
And when they have to disclose, it's going to make it hard, that much more harder, almost impossible for them to sell the
Would
house.
you guys agree that sometimes agents, by trying to do what's best for the buyer, ultimately, what's best for the buyer? They get the house they want, right?
Exactly.
That sometimes we look at this, and here's the, I'm going to refer back to when buyer's agency came in. Buyer's agency came in and everybody goes, I'm going to be this buyer's agent and I'm going to get you the best deal I possibly can on this house. Well, when buyer's agency came in, it was like 1995. Where was the market going then? Up through the roof, right? Was there anything about really getting a deal? You were lucky to get the house at that point.
Right.
So while I'm trying to get this great deal, guess what I didn't do? Didn't get him the house.
Exactly.
So am I really doing the buyer this great service by doing that? And your point is you're protecting your buyer, and you're right. But if buyers need to know, your job is to educate them. Your job, I'm not telling them what to make a decision. I never said anything about telling them what to put. My job is to educate them. This is what happens if you do it. This is what happens if you do this. Now, what do you want to do? Did I tell them they had to do one or other? It's the same thing when I tell them about inspectors. Everyone says you can't recommend an inspector. Bull crap.
Right.
I don't recommend them, but I do say, Dave, you know what? I've been doing this for the last 17 years. I've used a gentleman named Craig Lee with Home Team Inspections. Why don't you, my clients have always seem to be very happy with Craig. Why don't you give him a call? Did I say Dave had to use him?
No,
Are they going to call him?
probably.
Okay? It's the same thing. Did I not tell you or point you in a direction that I wanted you to go down? If I sit here and say, well, just check this, and you brought me an offer, I know I would say, you know what? They may do a lead-based paint inspection. And this is what happens if they do a lead-based paint. What do you want to do with the offer?
Can you counter and say we like
Absolutely.
every term except for?
Absolutely. Because it's in writing.
Pete, do you ever check that box?
I've never checked that box. I've never had anybody, well, 23 years, but this hasn't been around for 23 years. I always make sure I explain both to the buyer and the seller. Because again, buyers ultimately become what? Sellers.
Mhm.
And if I'm putting them in a bad position down the road, I'm not doing what's in their best interest. Am I?
No.
Okay? And so it's very clear. I want to make sure people understand paperwork. And most people don't understand this. Most agents don't understand paperwork. And that's why it's imperative that you guys come to the class so you see the perspective of what happens if you do this or that. Because I think it's important. All right? What time is it?
Well, I always check it, but I've never had one to do it.
But you see, by checking it,
I understand now.
Yeah.
I get your point.
okay? So, all right, we're going to break there, and that's going to be it for today. Round 2 starts next Friday. Actually, we got quite a few papers. Have a marvelous day. Go sell a house or 3.